I've never liked working late shifts, especially at a dimly lit McDonald's drive-thru. It's the kind of job nobody really wants, but sometimes you end up needing it to pay the bills. Flipping burgers late into the night becomes a necessary evil. The glowing golden arches stood out eerily against the black sky as I pulled into the nearly empty parking lot. The air smelled of grease, and the hum of the fluorescent lights buzzed in my ears as I headed to the back entrance. The tired-looking manager, Mike, handed me the headset, and I was officially in charge of the drive-thru window for the night. The first few hours were predictably dull. Cars rolled through, and I greeted each customer with the practiced cheerfulness McDonald's insists upon. The digital clock above the fryers ticked away, and monotony set in. Little did I know the night was about to get bizarre. Around midnight, a beat-up sedan rolled up to the intercom. The crackling speaker echoed as the car idled, and a low voice finally spoke. "I'll have a Big Mac meal, large size, with a Coke." The voice devoid of any emotion. "Sure thing, that's a Big Mac meal, large, with a Coke. Your total is $8. "Please drive up to the first window," I responded, my tone robotic and routine. The car pulled up, and I caught a glimpse of the driver, an older man, his face hidden in the shadows of the car's interior. His eyes, though, fixed on mine through the dim glow of the restaurant lights, sending a shiver down my spine. I handed him the bag, and he gave me a crumpled $10 bill without uttering a word. As the car pulled away, something felt off. The air seemed to thicken, and the normal sounds of the kitchen and occasional cars passing by became muffled. I shook off the uneasy feeling, attributing it to the late hour playing tricks on my mind. The night went on, and more cars came and went. The usual rhythm of the late-night shift continued until the clock neared 3 a.m. That's when the beat-up sedan returned. The same gravelly voice crackled through the speaker. "One more thing. I want it fresh this time." "Fresh?" I repeated, a bit confused. It was McDonald's. Everything was as fresh as it could be. The car pulled up to the window, and I could see the man more clearly now. His eyes were intense, almost desperate, as he handed me a $20 bill. "I want the fries hot, the burger hot, everything. If it's not fresh, I'll know." I nodded, a bit unnerved by the intensity in his gaze. "Sure, I'll make sure everything's fresh." As I handed him the bag, he leaned in, his eyes locked onto mine. "I know you can make it happen. I can tell you understand." The car pulled away, leaving me bewildered. What did he mean? "I can tell you understand." I shook off the weird encounter, chalking it up to another odd customer in the wee hours of the morning. It wasn't until the fourth time the same car pulled around, just as the first light of dawn began to streak across the sky, that things took a turn from the bizarre to the downright unsettling. The voice crackled through the speaker once more. "This is the last time. Make it perfect. If you don't, there will be consequences." Consequences? What kind of consequences could there be for not making a Big Mac to someone's liking? I tried to shake off the feeling of unease as I prepared the order, making sure everything was as fresh as possible. As the car pulled up, the man's eyes bore into mine with an intensity that made my skin crawl. "You've done well," he muttered, handing me a $100 bill. As he drove away, a chill settled over me. I counted the money, realizing it was far too much for a Big Mac meal. Was this some kind of sick joke? Just as I was about to call my manager to report the strange encounter, the man's car screeched to a halt outside the drive-thru window. He flung the door open and staggered towards me, his eyes wide with a manic intensity. "You did well," he repeated almost pleadingly. "You have to understand. They watch, you know? If it's not perfect, they watch." I took a step back, my heart pounding in my chest. "What are you talking about? Who's watching?" He grabbed my arm, his grip surprisingly strong. "The others. The ones who decide. They're always watching. You made it perfect, so you're safe. Remember, perfection is the key." With that cryptic message, he stumbled back to his car and sped away into the dawning light, leaving me standing there, shaken and bewildered. What had just happened? Who were the others? And why did my ability to make a perfect Big Mac matter so much? As the sun rose, I handed in my resignation. The drive home was filled with a sense of relief, but also an overwhelming curiosity about the bizarre events of the night. I never got the answers I was looking for. To this day, I avoid McDonald's drive-thrus at night, haunted by the memory of that mysterious man and his cryptic warnings. I used to work at the drive-thru window in a McDonald's near my house. I really disliked the job. Even though it was quite simple, the pay didn't match the duties. When I started, I earned $9 an hour. After 2 years, they promoted me to manager, bumping up my pay to $13 an hour. However, the added responsibilities made it not worth it for me, and that's partly why I eventually quit. But the incident I'm about to share was the final straw for me, leading me to bid farewell to that place. First off, I want to say that every job deserves respect, and I appreciate anyone working to make ends meet. I won't judge anyone for working at McDonald's, but it just wasn't worth my time and energy anymore, especially since I found a much better job that I genuinely enjoy. Our McDonald's operated 24/7 back then, before the onset of COVID-19. Every night there was this guy who would come through the drive-thru around the same time. He consistently hit on me, asking for my number in the typical, persistent way. No matter how many times I told him I wasn't interested, he persisted. I have to admit, his persistence was unmatched. For months, he would do this every single day. One night during a particularly tough work week, I snapped when he asked me out again. I gave him a piece of my mind, telling him to leave or face trespassing charges for harassment. I handed him his food with a sly smile, thinking he'd finally get the message, but I underestimated his persistence. Within minutes, he was right in front of me, walking into the McDonald's, even heading into the kitchen area where I was standing. It was 11 o'clock at night, and there were only 2 other workers present. A nerdy guy who couldn't protect me, and a 16-year-old girl who wasn't supposed to be there. The McDonald's closed at 8 p.m., and whoever left last was supposed to lock the door. Dylan, another manager, must have forgotten. Now I was in serious trouble. The guy threatened me, claiming he had a gun. He didn't pull it out, but he warned that if any of us called the police, he would use it. I tried to calm him down, but it took a long 15 minutes to convince him to leave without incident. Fortunately, nobody got hurt. After he finally left, I locked the door and couldn't resist yelling at him, making the situation worse. The McDonald's was connected to a gas station, and we all ran to hide in the back, calling the police. Luckily, a new hire working the late shift next door took charge. He helped us hide and sent the store into lockdown. We escaped through a secret door in the back, and I ran off in my car despite warnings not to. Thankfully, I got away, and everyone else stayed behind until the intruder fled. The guy's name was Gregory, but I don't recall his last name. He had a warrant out for his arrest, and was eventually caught a few months later. I never set foot in that McDonald's again. When I was around 10 years old, I lived in the city not far from a McDonald's. I remember one day I convinced my mom to let me go there alone to get some food. She was busy with something and gave me a few dollars, telling me to come back quickly. I was excited. It made me feel like a grown-up to go out on my own. I had done it several times before, not daily, but now and then. So I left and made my way to the McDonald's. It took me about 10 minutes to walk there. After leaving our house, I only had to walk to the end of the street, then cross a busy one. After that, I went down a bit before the McDonald's was on the right side. As I approached the restaurant, a sudden urge to use the bathroom hit me. I got inside, saw that the place wasn't very busy, and walked over to the bathrooms to use it before ordering. When I got inside the bathroom, nobody else was in there. I went into a stall, but about a minute later, I heard the bathroom door open and close. This was followed by footsteps that didn't go in far. They seemed to stop just inside the door. I thought this was weird. I kept expecting them to walk further in, but they didn't. After about a minute, I ducked down and looked underneath the bathroom stall I was in. I saw black shoes in the bottom of some black pants. They were standing right in front of the door. I wanted to leave, but I would have to walk past the person, so I decided to wait. As I sat in the bathroom stall, I couldn't believe how or why this person was standing there for so long. I decided to stay in the bathroom stall until they left. Actually, after probably 10 more minutes, I heard the door open and the person walked out. I felt much better. The whole thing seemed really strange to me. Finally, I was able to leave the bathroom stall, and after I walked out of the bathroom, I looked around the restaurant. There still weren't many people in there. However, not long after leaving the restrooms, as I was making my way over to order, I saw a man sitting in the corner of the restaurant. I noticed his black shoes and pants. I realized this was likely the same guy. I hurried up and went to the counter to order, and I did not see the man as I did. After ordering, it didn't take long at all for me to get my food, and I then left the restaurant to walk home. I began making my way back along the sidewalk, but before making it more than 2 minutes, I had a bad feeling. I looked back, and sure enough, the same guy was trailing me. He was a little ways back and not right up on me, but it still made me really nervous. Could he be following me? Was he the same man who had just been standing inside the bathroom door for so long? I kept looking back every so often, and the man was always behind me. When I started walking faster intentionally, the guy did the same thing. I was now getting really worried. What if this guy followed me all the way back to my house? What if he ran up behind me and tried to grab me or something before I could get home? As I approached the busy street to wait at the crosswalk before crossing, I had to stop. The man would probably catch up to me before I could make it across the street. That's when I decided to just go for it. I started sprinting across the road with many cars still on it. I felt confident that I could make it and would not be hit by a car, but nevertheless, multiple cars honked at me as I ran. Luckily, I did make it across safely. I looked back and saw the man starting to run out into the street as well, but a car quickly approached and honked at him. He backed up and stayed on the other side. I used this opportunity to run up into my street and out of sight of the man. I ran the whole rest of the way home and made it back a short time later. After making it home, I told my mom all about the experience, and as a result, I was not allowed to go anywhere on my own for a while. But I didn't mind a bit. I was worried that the man would have somehow found out where we lived, and I worried about that for weeks. Luckily, I don't believe he did because I never saw him again after that. It was one of those nights, you know? The kind where exhaustion weighs you down like a ton of bricks, and all you can think about is sinking into the comfort of your bed. I'd just finished another grueling shift at work, and by the time the clock struck 11, fatigue clung to me like a shadow. I drove through the empty streets, stomach growling louder than my tired engine. Fast food wasn't my go-to, but hunger had a way of overpowering good intentions. That's when I saw the glowing beacon of a McDonald's sign on the side of the road. A familiar golden arch promising quick satisfaction. Initially, I planned to whip up something at home, but halfway through the drive, the emptiness in my stomach convinced me otherwise. I steered my car towards the next exit, lured by the fluorescent allure of the fast food haven. This particular McDonald's was unfamiliar territory. Not the one near work or the one close to home, but a midpoint between the two. As I pulled into the parking lot, my gaze fixed on the empty drive-through lanes, a welcomed sight for someone yearning to get home as quickly as possible. Approaching the drive-through speaker, however, I noticed a peculiar sign taped to it. "Out of order. Please proceed inside," it read. A minor inconvenience, I thought, deciding to go in. I spotted a few cars scattered in the parking lot, and with a sigh, I parked mine and made my way to the entrance. But as I reached for the door, my hand met resistance. It was locked. Bewilderment washed over me, and just as confusion settled in, I heard rustling nearby. My eyes darted towards a bush, beside the building, witnessing the emergence of two men, seemingly materializing from thin air. A cold shiver ran down my spine, urging me to retreat. I started backing away, only to be met with a stern shout, commanding me to stay put. Panic gripped me as I turned and sprinted back towards my car, instinct screaming at me to escape the unfolding nightmare. A vice-like grip seized my shoulder, yanking me backward. I stumbled, feeling the cold ground beneath me. The pursuer fell too, losing his grip for a moment. I seized the opportunity, scrambling to my feet and sprinting towards my car. With trembling hands, I locked the doors just in time. The man outside banged on my window, demanding entry, while another figure sprinted towards a nearby car. What happened next defied all reason. The man inside the car reversed, speeding towards my vehicle, ramming into the back with a force that jolted my senses. My car lurched forward, damaged and shaken. As the assailant continued his assault, pounding on my window, I shifted into drive and plowed over the curb, up into the grass. My SUV's four-wheel drive proved its worth as I escaped the chaos unfolding in the parking lot. The second man hastily retreated to his car, and I sped away, dialing 911 with shaky hands. Breathless, I tried to relay the bizarre encounter to the dispatcher. The men, hindered by the limitations of their standard cars, struggled to follow my erratic path. Sharp turns and desperate maneuvers ensured I left them behind. A vigilant police officer, alerted by the unfolding drama, pulled me over. I recounted the night's events. The fear etched across my face mirrored in the officer's concerned expression. My car, now a battered wreck, needed towing to a repair shop. I made it home, shaken but alive. As I reflected on the night's events, questions lingered. What motivated those men to attack me at a seemingly deserted McDonald's? Were they mere criminals, or did insanity grip them in its unforgiving clutches? When I was 9 years old, I went to McDonald's one sunny afternoon with my mom and little sister. The place was very crowded with people everywhere. After going inside, I saw the toys in a case and stopped to check them out. But when I looked up a minute later, my mom and sister were gone. I thought they were still near me, but when I looked around, they weren't there. As I stood there looking around, a woman I didn't know came up to me. She somehow knew who I was. When she was right in front of me, she said my mom was looking for me, sounding a bit stern, like I was in trouble. I felt scared, thinking I might be in trouble because my mom had always told me to stay by her in public. The woman led me towards the exit, holding my hand, and told me it was dangerous to wander off like I had. As we were about to leave, I got a bad feeling. I hadn't questioned the situation until then, but I realized something was off. My mom hadn't even ordered yet, and we had planned to eat inside. So why would she have left? I suddenly pulled my arm away from the woman, ran through the crowd, and found my mom and sister at the far left front counter. I didn't see the woman again, and I didn't tell my mom about it, fearing I'd get in trouble. As I got older, I realized how close I came to possibly getting kidnapped. When I turned 16, I got my first job at the same McDonald's. One quiet Monday night, I found myself working behind the counter with just my coworker. The night had been uneventful until a man walked in. He looked like the grown-up version of the Eerie Kid from the movie Vivarium, towering at an imposing height of probably 6'6". He was wearing a suit with a black and white polka dot pattern, which seemed odd for a late-night visit to McDonald's. Unlike other customers, the man bypassed the counter and went straight to a corner table. He took out a fork, spoon, and a small plate from his pocket, placing them on the table as if prepared for a meal without any intention of ordering. I was weirded out, and the guy kept looking in my direction. Trying to ignore him, I went back to minding my own business behind the counter. When it was time to close up, I didn't want to tell the guy to leave. He seemed off and I was nervous. I told my coworker, and when we came back out, the man was gone. We hadn't heard him leave, and we checked everywhere. I was relieved and went on with closing up. Later that night at my apartment, as I lay in bed, I glanced out my window and couldn't believe my eyes. The same tall, creepy man was walking down the sidewalk. He stopped and stared right at me. I quickly closed the blinds, my heart racing. After a few moments, I opened them slightly to see him walking away in the distance. I kept my blinds closed and went back to bed, still thinking about the creepy encounter. Maybe it was a coincidence, but it sent shivers down my spine, especially when he looked at me.